the Buddha was talking of the second noble truth in terms of nutriment. Nutriment is food. If the lotus does not have food, the lotus cannot grow. We have to give the mud, the water, the heat, and so on. So your suffering also needs food in order to survive. And because you have been feeding your suffering, that is why your suffering continues. If you know how to cut the source of nutriment, and then your suffering will have to die, will have to transform. Your love is the same. The Buddha said nothing can survive without food, including your love. If you do not know how to feed your love will die. Your love will turn into something else, like despair, hate, anger. The same thing is true with your depression, with your suffering. You have been feeding your depression. You have consumed in such a way that keep your depression alive for many months. And if you look deeply into the nature of your suffering, namely your depression, you will identify the source of food that you have used in order to feed your depression. And if you identify the source of nutriment that you have been using to feed your depression, you can cut off that source of nutriment, and then your depression will have to go away in a few weeks, because there is no more food for it to continue. So that is the second noble truth. And in this case, the Buddha described the second noble truth in terms of nutriment. And he said, what has come to be, namely your suffering. If you know how to look deeply into its nature and identify the source of food that you have used to feed it, you are already on the path of transformation and healing. And that is why it's very important to come back and to touch our own suffering and to have the courage to look deeply. And many of us do not have that kind of courage. We feel that if we go back to us, we encounter the block of suffering inside and we will be overwhelmed by it. And that is why many of us try to run away from our own suffering, using the means of consumption. We try to turn television on, not because the program is very good, but because we don't want to be without suffering. We want to cover up with something else. In this case, the consumption of television. We play the music. We open the refrigerator to eat, even if we are not hungry. We eat because we want to cover up the suffering inside. And we do many things like that. And the market provides us with all kinds of things so that we can use in order to cover up the suffering. Books, magazines, television, cinemas, conversations, internet. We always try to run away from ourselves. We do not have the courage to go home and to rearrange, to restore harmony and peace, and to build true happiness. This is fear. But with the practice of mindfulness, we can go home with strength and courage. Because with the practice of mindful walking, mindful breathing, we can generate the energy of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. And equipped with that kind of energy, you can go home without fear. Hello there, my suffering. I know you are still there. I will take good care of you. And with the practice continued, you can learn to embrace your own suffering and have a deep look and try to understand your suffering, the suffering of your father, your mother in it, the suffering of your ancestors in it, the suffering of the world in it. We do like a loving mother, embracing her baby with mindful breathing, mindful walking. And with mindfulness concentration, you look deeply into the nature of your suffering, and you will discover the truth about the making of suffering, the second noble truth. And when you touch the second noble truth, understanding arises and compassion begins to flow, and you suffer less. And when you look at the other person, you can see the suffering in him or in her. You understand, and you are filled with compassion. The way you look at him is different now. You are looking at him with compassion and not with anger anymore. Transformation is taking place.